Sally. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, Afia is here with me as well. And you can write us directly in the chat or just use the comment chat for everyone. Leave your questions. And whenever Sally is ready to take your questions, she will be replying to you, okay? We will help you manage all of this. So I hope you enjoyed the session, and I'll handle it to you, Sally.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I hope everyone can see my screen.
I can, so I'm guessing everyone can see.
Okay, so I'm Sally. I am based in Copenhagen, Denmark, and I'm the co-founder of LuLuLab. And at LuLuLab, we develop educational games on taboo topics to make it easier to speak out loud about the difficult things. And so the next half hour or so, I'll take you through our journey as an impact startup being based in Copenhagen, but mainly working in African countries. A bit about how we got started and how we got our first funding and our first clients, and which key learnings we have from the past 1.5 years approximately. And I hope that this will be relevant for you. And as Alexandra said, please feel free to ask any questions or reach us afterwards if you have some questions. Yeah, so a lot of people ask us why it's actually called LuLuLab. And so Lulu means an outstanding example of a particular person. So what we want to do with our games is to empower people to become this extraordinary version of themselves. So that is what Lulu means for us, and it's called Lab because we make games, so it's just like a game lab. And our idea actually first started at a hackathon, which was arranged by several NGOs like Save the Children, Maternity Foundation, and Red Cross, the UNFPA, and Microsoft was one of the tech partners. And the challenge for this weekend event was to come up with a tech solution to educate girls in sub-Saharan Africa on sexual and reproductive health and rights. So it was very niche. And with my team that I mainly met at the hackathon, our idea was a game. And since the NGOs really loved the idea, we decided that we would keep working on it afterwards. So it kind of just started as a hobby, you could say. Yes. So we then developed a prototype, and we went to urban, rural, and slum areas of Kenya to test and to co-create the visuals and the content with both boys and girls. And even though the hackathon mainly focused on girls, we thought we really wanted to include the boys as well, because as we also experienced while testing, the boys are actually equally interested in knowing how a woman or how a baby grows in a woman's belly, for example. And on the photo here in the lower left corner, you can see how we co-created visuals with the girls. So we asked them basically how would you like to look if you were a character in this digital game? And they had a lot of fun being very creative with us. So they actually, as you see, they don't have a lot of hair themselves, but they actually drew these girls with very big hair and very colorful dresses, much more colorful than their school uniforms. And these were insights that we wouldn't get to ourselves if we hadn't been co-creating with them. And in general, these whole using creative methods with the girls really helped the girls open up and feel more comfortable in sharing their questions on sexual and reproductive health. And on this same trip, we also got invited to Ethiopia because the organizers from the hackathon actually knew that we were still going, we were still working on this project. So the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs invited us to this tech development roundtable in Addis Ababa, and we got to test and co-create and present our work to UN Women and some local NGOs. So that was a really good opportunity for us to show our work and who we are. Yeah, and then we brought home all these good insights that we developed with our human-centered approach, and we started to create our first game level here in Denmark while still keeping in touch with the NGOs that we met in both Denmark and Africa. And for example, sometimes we would not be sure how are you actually allowed to portray the female body in Kenya, and how do they actually speak about menstruation in Ethiopia. And then we would be in constant contact with the NGOs still to ask for some advice. On this last photo from Kenya, you see one of the students playing with help from the teacher. And it's a quite funny story, because we also realized from our co-creation that the girls and boys had a hard time understanding the audio in the game, which was recorded with our English, with our Danish accent. So we could see how they kept pressing the repeat button in the game. And so we later switched on to English with a Swahili accent to make sure that they actually understand what we're trying to teach them. But we didn't want to go full on 100% Swahili, because we wanted to keep it a language learning experience as well. And I have a video here of our first game level, which should play. Yes, so we called it Lulu's Journey, and it's based on interactive storytelling, and you follow this girl called Lulu who just got her first period, and she can ask questions and interact with Nurse Mary, who was the character that we saw from our user research, that this was the person the girls and boys felt comfortable in speaking to about these topics. In the game they can play different mini games. This is a uterus puzzle, and before was this Candy Crush-like game with sanitary pads and menstrual cups and bacteria. And we have some different videos that shows how to use the different sanitary products, and we just included the reusable sanitary pads as well, which a lot of NGOs work with. And the game works both offline and online, and on any device. For Android, you can also download it, and hopefully by next week it works on Apple products too. And I think to implement this, we made it a really big challenge to actually start with the very rural areas, because these were our first partner NGOs. So we made a digital game that can be installed with USB, and so it can work on any. We saw that our NGO partners often have donated computer labs, so they can install it with the USB so the girls can play, and they can take back all the numbers on how that shows how the girls actually interact in the game, and what they learn they can take back with the USB as well. And of course, now I don't know if you work with NGOs as well, but our experience was to start small. So we tested and co-created with UN Women, but we still had a long process in front of us to where we could actually validate that this game works and the students learn something. So we had to find some smaller NGOs to work with to actually be able to test on the ground while we were not there ourselves. And Petiyama and Wiser Girls is some of them. Yes, I don't know if that was a question. And what we also saw from our testing, as you see in these photos as well, is that the girls prefer to play the game in groups, which is really ideal for us, because we could see that today the teachers that teach sexual education barely do it because they don't feel comfortable doing it, or because they might not have the knowledge to teach this topic. So that this game works as a platform to kind of facilitate the dialogue outside the screen, so that the girls can interact with each other around these topics. That was really what we were aiming for, so we were super happy to see these results. Yes. Yeah, I can share as well with our strategy for this first game level was our very first product, and we decided to give it out for free to get reach and to be able to fully validate that this game works and the users learn something and they like to play it and they want to play more. And we actually thought that we would then develop more games and do this subscription-based model, but it turned out a bit differently today, which I will get to later in the presentation. Yes, and we also considered if we should go to India next, because we got some really good contacts from the Indian Parliament. But we have decided to not go too broad too fast. So now we're focusing on implementing in more African countries with this one game before we start on more new stuff. Yeah. So another different project that we started actually just when we came back from Africa is what we're currently doing in Denmark, which has been a very long process because we started doing more things at the same time. But this is our educational game on mental health for adolescents, so another taboo topics. And we're currently finishing the prototype for this game after a super, super interesting co-creation process, where over 4 weeks we had the students co-create in groups different prototypes on different mental health topics. So in the beginning, we asked all the students to speak in front of the whole class, but basically we just wanted them to say their name and just one mental health topic that they would like to work on. And we could tell that they felt very uncomfortable speaking in front of everyone. But as the process of the 4 weeks started, and we split them into teams that they chose themselves, and they got to develop games within mental health topics that they also chose themselves, and we advised them to go and do user testing and so on. And then after 4 weeks, they presented to us and to the teachers and to the principal in this lion's den setup. And we could see that they suddenly felt very comfortable and very confident in presenting their work and speaking to everyone, and they even shared their own personal experiences with mental health to the whole classroom. So that was quite fascinating to see such a big change in such a short time, and again, how the digital can help make a change outside the screen as well. Yes, other things we do is to advise NGOs in how to use co-creation and gamification in their work. Not only in their educational work, but also other topics. So for example, through consultancies and design sprints. We really made an effort all the time to keep in touch with the NGOs and to show them our progress and what we were up to. So they eventually reached out to us and asked us to come in to work for them on small or bigger projects. And one of the bigger projects is, for example, this upcoming one we have that we will start in August, which is with the Save the Children. And I think this is the project where I felt like we really made it as a startup, if you can say so. So you probably know Save the Children, but you probably don't know this TV show in Denmark called Danmarks Indsamling, which is a TV aid show where 12 NGOs each bring a project, and then private people and companies donate to these, and it's a very big thing. And this year the focus was on the girl child, and Save the Children brought the project they have in Sierra Leone, which is focusing on teenage pregnancies and teenage moms, which is a huge problem. So to mention a few numbers, 38% of all 15-year-old girls have one child, and by the time they are 18, they often have two. So this is a big problem, and sugar daddies is a big problem. The girls are often unmarried with these kids, and then they are not keeping in touch with their families because the kids came outside marriage, and it's a very complex issue. But Save the Children reached out to us they asked us to be the digital partner for this project. So we will create a digital platform with educational games on sexual rights and other related topics that we will detect from our co-creation in Sierra Leone. Yes, so we are very excited, and it's going to be really interesting. Yes, and this was also the reason that we didn't start our subscription-based model yet, because now we will kind of build a bit more, and we started out doing a more consultancy kind of approach, to then be able to do a subscription-based model later. Difficult word. Yeah. And this is a great way for us to scale our efforts outside, and we have an agreement that Save the Children are allowed to scale it internally to their other projects, of course. Another upcoming project we have is with the BRAG, which is a big global NGO. Maybe you know it. It's very famous, but not very famous in Denmark, actually. So we, before, we have applied for funding just on our own with, to various big funding programs, and we didn't have much luck, to be honest. But then we asked BRAG if they would like to implement our game in some of their programs. And we started talking, and they asked us if we would be interested in applying for funding to develop new game levels with them. So we got funding from this Grand Challenges program from the Canadian government, which BRAG has gotten funding from before, and in general they are so established and so validated. So this is a really nice approach that you can team up with someone bigger and more experienced. So we will develop more game levels on sexual and reproductive health and rights for their youth clubs in Uganda. So we are very excited to go there too. Yes. Another thing we're doing with our current game is to translate that into a Danish context. So we are working with Womena, which is an NGO focusing on menstruation and especially educational material on menstrual hygiene, and they work in Denmark and Africa. We're very much in the same niche. And we have this really nice approach with them where we have, in a collaboration with 2 master thesis students who help us explore how our game can meet the student and teacher needs in Danish public schools. They will help us basically do all the initial research. And I think this is a really nice method that I would recommend because you get some more passionate people involved on your mission, and the students get huge value in return. And it's also an opportunity to build a stronger partnership with another organization working within the same area. So you kind of cooperate instead of compete, I guess you can say. This is our team. I'm Sally, and I do the innovation, so basically the co-creation workshops and most of the partnerships. We have Felipe, who is our game designer and our programmer, and then Mathilde, who does all the beautiful visuals you've seen in the game and in this presentation. And she also does a lot of co-founder related tasks. And we have our 2 interns, Sanne and Karoline, who's been helping with funding and design. And then we've been a part of 2 accelerator programs. So Be Changemaker is an online accelerator that I can definitely recommend if you're early stage. It's funded by HP Live and very skilled people helping you out. Another accelerator is from Danske Bank called Plus Impact. So it's based in the Nordics. They have been doing 2 programs now in Denmark, and the next one will be in Sweden, announced soon. And they have super strong partners in from Catapult Accelerator in Oslo and Singularity University, which you probably know. So that was a really nice network to be a part of. On the side, we have some advisors. So BCG has been doing some pro bono work for us. Tights is our game advisor. And right now our challenge is actually that we would like to establish some more long-term advisor relationships. So we would like to set up an advisory board, basically, because we know a lot of skilled people, and they often meet us for a coffee or 2. And now that we have bigger projects coming up, it's nice for us to have something a bit more established that we can go to. So our key learnings that I would like to share with you, it's not in prioritized order, but yes, I would say First of all, focus on user needs and not your solution. So we started our idea at a hackathon, and we had this great opportunity to show our initial work and get feedback from the NGOs, who are basically our customers, during this weekend event and afterwards, as we really made a good effort to keep in touch with them. And within a few months after this hackathon, we went to test our prototypes for 2 weeks in these 2 different countries. And this has really meant everything for our product. And also to our NGO clients, who are very heavy on this evidence-based learnings, and they really expect to see some numbers on our results. And I think in this, it's very important to look into what your which approach your customers use and what they prefer to see in partners as well. And on a similar note, test and validate as early as possible. So, for example, the prototype we brought to Kenya first was about pregnancy and contraceptives, but the users were not really ready for these topics because, first of all, they were too young to discuss pregnancy, and second of all, they might not have access to contraceptives, and it's not even completely legal from the government side to actually talk about using contraceptives because they shouldn't even be having sex. So that's very complicated, which we also discovered on our testing. But yeah, we saw that the relevant topics actually in the urban and slum areas were mainly STIs and STDs. That was a huge issue, and the education on this topic was very needed. And in the rural areas, it was more a need for more education on menstrual hygiene, which is how Lulu's journey started. So we were initially not wrong, but we were still a bit off. So I think this testing really helped us develop the right solution to match our user needs. Yes, and validate. Find a way as early as possible to validate your idea or your product, and find a way that you can actually show this result to your customers or to donors. Especially if you're in impact as well, I think it's crucial that you can show why your solution is needed and that your solution helps to solve the problem you're addressing. Yes. Establish a dedicated team with the main skills. So yeah, get the core team settled as early as possible. And what we did is that we made the most essential people co-founders to ensure that they felt motivated and to ensure that they felt ownership of our product as well. And I can see that really made a difference, and they really do some sacrifices for LuLuLab as well. Yes, and I think having the core team from the start might also mean that you're able to develop your MVP costless. And that's actually what we more or less managed to, because we then had all the core skills within our co-founder team. Yes, and because we managed to build a network with the NGOs, we even got most of our travels covered because it was by invitation. Yeah, so, and in that, having said that, I would say also, I feel a bit biased, but I would really advise you to show off and really use social media, because that's actually how we got our first clients. And yeah, we did a really good job in showing our progress on LinkedIn and Facebook, the LuLuLab pages, and also our private pages. And we made a huge effort to stay connected to the NGOs and the other partners that we met along the way. Also because we needed advice, but of course because we wanted our game to go through their channels as well, so that we could reach even more girls and boys together. Yes, so the NGOs knew that we were still going, and eventually they were the one coming to us asking for advice and innovation, and asking us to work for them on small and big projects. Save the Children is one example. Yes, ask for advice. You've probably heard this a million times, but we always got a lot more than that. So always, if you dare to text people that you don't know and ask for their help for just an hour or a coffee, I only experience that everyone loves to help and share their skills, so it's always worth it to ask. In relation to that, I know the Bridge for Billions is probably really good with your mentor program. But I can also, if any of you are based in Scandinavia, I can recommend the Plus Impact platform, which is this online platform matching startups that have a challenge with experts within that field. That could, for example, be pricing or go-to-market strategy. And we got very well connected from here. That's how we got our game advisor. That's how we got BCG to do pro bono work for us. So I would definitely recommend that. The last one, say yes. We always get invited to a lot of different things, and we do this because we want LuLuLab to work, but we realize that even though it might be a bit uncomfortable, we need to put ourselves out there. So we got invited to African TV, Danish radio, and lots of pitching and presentation events that you probably also tried, and lots of really lovely travels. And as much as possible, we always said yes if we had the time, because it's such a good way to get your company, your name out there, and to get some attention. Also for you to share on your own social media, to show that you are super active, and you will also be shared on other people's social media, and that really has some effect. And getting out there is a great way to build a network too. Yes. That was a bit about LuLuLab. I think something I didn't mention was that a little while after the hackathon, so this lovely Friday afternoon, we got contacted by the organizers of the hackathon, who told us that they were very impressed with our progress, and that Microsoft would like to award us with some money for our work. So that, for example, helped cover for our stay in Kenya and a lot more. So this was actually how we got what you can say our seed funding. So now I spoke a lot, but I think there might be some questions here.
Kelly? Yes, I think we have some questions. Thank you so much. I'll comment after. I don't want to take too much time. We do have some questions, some from me. We have something from Jaime as well. Impressive work, Sally. What's the cost of your main product from being involved in so many projects?
What's the cost, sorry?
For your main product from being involved in so many projects?
I am not sure I understand that.
Jaime, can you explain your question?
Yes, sure thing. So you explained in the beginning that you were involved on making the game, and then you also got involved with Save the Children for other project, and now I'm blanking out on the second one that you explained.
Yeah.
So that's basically the question. Since you are doing the game and also consulting many other companies and attending to events, your team is not that big, so that must have a cost.
Yes, definitely. So we started as a hobby. So we spent our free time for a long time, like next to our other things, to actually make the game and to do the consultancy, and then eventually Save the Children came to us now. So this is all upcoming projects. So we will start that in August. And of course, every time there's an event or something else, we really consider if this is something we should spend our time on, as you probably also have. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Sally, if anyone has any questions, you can also speak now or leave us a chat as you would prefer. I would encourage you to also speak and give Sally some warm voice, because I know how it is to be speaking without hearing any sounds. I have a question I dropped that I wanted to ask you, Sally. When you started working with local NGOs, did you do the work of approaching and engaging the families, or did your local partner do it?
With families?
Yes. I mean, because sometimes it may be a constraint in getting families involved so that students can attend this kind of sessions and programs. So I'm asking if you did it yourself through LuLuLab, or if you asked your local partners to do it.
We asked them locally, so we kind of became a part of their like existing efforts within sexual education if they had that. So that whole interaction with families and within the school, that was on the local partner side.
Okay.
So I think it was really crucial for us to also find some open-minded NGOs, because it's not a lot of schools, government schools won't focus on sexual education unless you really have some strong person there who wants to implement it. But the NGOs are a bit more open-minded, also in terms of technology and digital methods, so that was a lot easier.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're I don't know if you can speak louder or if it's your microphone, because we started having difficulties hearing you sometimes. I think the sound is not very high. We have another question here from Saita. We see many familiar faces. I'm very happy to see all of you here. So what stage did you launch your social media presence?
Very early on. Yeah, I guess more or less from the beginning. We actually did after the hackathon, and we put it out there, and I think there was also a bit like showing people that we are serious about it. So it's not just a hobby, but this is something we really want to continue with, and I think that had an effect on how they see us as well. But I think also social media is something you can spend so much time on. Something special for LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. So now we try to kind of tone it down a bit, because we have more important work, and we kind of really had the nice effects from it.
And a question regarding this, did you approach directly the NGOs, or did you use ads? What kind of tools did you use that you think were more successful?
So on our first trip to Kenya, I basically reached out to 15 to 20 NGOs on LinkedIn and from their websites, and went through the Danish office to another European office to the African office, and then to the one who was working with sexual education. And we did the same with the UNHCR, and we actually also managed to have a meeting with them in Kenya, which was, there was so much learning in it from us, because it's the same for a co-creation workshop. You need to talk to all the experts within the field as well. And we just came back from Canada, where we were invited to present our work. And this was a great, at the Women Deliver conference, was a great venue to also be able to approach all the NGOs directly who work within that field. That takes a lot of time, but it's really nice when it works.
Sally, I'm going to just ask you again if maybe, or you can speak a bit louder. I'm sorry. It's just, I don't know if it's just me, but we're having difficulties in hearing you. I mean, we can hear you, but it's very low, the sound. Okay. There's another question here from Giuseppe. Are you planning to implement something in Europe other than Denmark?
Yes. How's my sound now?
It's a bit the same. I'm going to ask other people if they're facing the same issues. Can you hear Sally correctly? Or yes, sorry, they're saying yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the plan with our mental health game that we co-created with adolescents is definitely to, we make it in English now, so that it's more scalable. And we're also doing the menstrual hygiene game in Danish context, which I think is very scalable to neighboring countries, because it's a similar culture. And for example, if we would go to Arabic countries, we would need to change the whole, like we have the savannah, and we have, of course, the African girls. So the whole culture context and the whole language about how you speak about these taboo topics would need to be. But yeah, we hope to.
Great. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Okay, I think Afia has a question here.
Hi, Sally.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you so much for the great presentation. It's really insightful and amazing. And I was just wondering, with the co-creation, do you have like a methodology? Do you have Any tips on how to organize that? Because I think it has been very instrumental in making your product so great.
Yeah, I think the co-creation has been key in making a product that fits the needs of users that are so far away. I think maybe your microphone was also a bit vague, or your sound.
Okay.
I don't know if it's...
Could you okay, maybe you can speak directly through here. We're in the same room and we may have found some issues. I'm sorry.
Oh, but I could hear you just fine. But can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, so it's such a long distance relationship we have with our users. So co-creation was key to actually understand them. And I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it's basically like using design thinking and using the human-centered approach where we keep testing whatever we develop, and we will do the same now that we develop something new with Greg and with Safe Children. And we just it gets very personal when we co-create, because we use our own personal experiences to have the students, the young girls, open up as well around these taboo topics. So you really yourself get put on the spot to talk about menstruation and menstrual cramps and so on, and then suddenly it becomes normal and the vibe in the room changes and other people get to speak about it as well. So I guess it really depends on the topic how you do your co-creation as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
I don't know if there are any more questions. Okay, to give everyone a minute or two to think. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, Sally, you're doing a great job, and I really appreciate this. I have a daughter, she's just 10 years old, and I think she's getting to that age when she will need something like this. So yes, thank you very much.
Amazing.
That's great, thank you. Thank you, that's nice. Where are you based?
So we can see you.
Gabriel?
Oh, me? I'm in Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm based in Nigeria, yeah. I'm also working on a program for students, university students, student-to-student.com. Yeah.
Very cool, but I hope that if anyone has some questions afterwards, I don't know if there are any more now, but...
Can I ask a question? Can I? I was just wondering, did you find, I'm also doing a mental health project, and I just wondered, did you have any difficulties in translating your methodology from, say, an African context to a Danish one? Did you have to sort of adapt it culturally, or did you use the same programs in Denmark as you would in an African context?
Yeah, we did it in a very different way, actually, because we just did some smaller co-creation sessions with our work in Africa. So they drew like some visuals that we got inspiration from, and we had a lot of like focus groups and dialogues and questionnaires to kind of collect the content from them. But in Denmark, we did this a bit more empowering version. So we asked the students to actually make their own games over like this 4-week process, because they at their school, it's a high school, but it's kind of an alternative one, because they also teach game design, graphic design, and so on. So the students were able to make teams that actually have all the same or similar skills as we do in our core team. And then they were able to actually make a product themselves. So they made these prototypes, and then we took inspiration from them to make our own prototype, so that they didn't feel like we took their games or anything. So that was quite a different approach, and I think it's also they were a different age group as well. So it kind of has to fit. Are you using co-creation in your work?
Well, I'm at very early stage, but I'm looking at doing a mental health app for sort of very young adults. So it was really interesting for me to hear that your people was it Uganda, I think, had some trouble understanding accents and things like that. I thought that was interesting because I'm thinking of doing sort of meditation practice, some spoken art, poetry, anecdotal things so that young people can work through sort of anxiety and stress. But I want to do it in different contexts, like some crisis contexts and then some sort of urban, perhaps at, London, New York, countries like that, cities like that, and then also do it in more of a crisis context. So I'd have deeper layers of working with anxiety and stress. But I'm trying to sort of keep it art and meditation blended together because I think young people would respond to it more. So I haven't done a lot of, I haven't built a product yet to test it at all, but so I'm intrigued to know what some of the potential issues are going to be, and one of them will probably be people understanding accents, I imagine.
Yeah, super interesting. I think also what was really difficult for us was to actually get access, because we thought we had all these lovely NGO partners from the hackathon, but when we then wanted to go to Africa, it was, that was not possible. So we had to go and find our own local implementation partners, and that really took some extra time for us to get started, because it's a long process to like build a relationship and actually get access to these students who might not be in the best place already.
Yeah, and what I'm learning from you is it's good to start small and grow out rather than do something blanket and global. So I think that's important learning.
Yeah, focus on one topic for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I don't see any comments. I don't know if anyone is saving their question. Okay, if not, and meanwhile, I can start by thanking you so much, Sally. I think it was very inspiring. We can see by the level of questions and comments that we have here. Exactly, Sarita, thank you for mentioning that, because that's exactly one of the things and the strengths that I was most inspired by Sally's and by LuLuLab's project and the journey, is that how partnerships and small actions in different contexts can actually understand and adapt your product and make you grow so much. And using simple tools that like gaming or new technologies or new languages can actually have such a potential of impact, and because of the level of engagement and simplicity to deliver to people and to these targets. So congratulations. Everyone fell in love with this project as when Julie, actually from our team, mentioned it to us. It has a very, very powerful potential for systemic change, and for sure many learnings that we can all adapt and use in our projects and in our ventures. I don't know if you have any final comment or anything that you would like to share, Sally. I wanted everyone to share something with you. I wanted to ask everyone to share a word of what this session today meant to them. I said transformation. I see us here saying open and inviting. Afia said impact. Sarah said empowering cinemas. It was great. Giuseppe said Sally's a boss. I don't know if anyone else would like to share out loud, because we wanted to give you this little present, Sally. It was very, very inspiring, and it was very generous from you. Thank you for sharing it with us today. We have stunning.
Thank you so much. This was lovely, and I hope that it could help someone out there, or inspire at least. And very happy for the opportunities to share our work with you.
Thank you so much. Sarita just left stunning, and Gabrielle great. Thank you so much, all of you, also for attending. If you have any comments or any suggestions or things that you remember maybe later today or tomorrow about this, I will be happy to forward it to Sally. Just handle to our team, to me, to Afia, over the community. We will share the presentation as the presentation, the recording, as you know. If you have any other things that you would like to comment or maybe see in future sessions, do get in contact with us. It's a pleasure for us to also bring you this. And Sally, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.